Good afternoon, everybody. Just wanted to take some time to talk a little bit about how this next unit is going to play out. What I've done that's different from other units that we've had is I've put everything that you need in this PowerPoint, and I've linked this PowerPoint directly to Blackboard underneath the notes, handouts, resources. The goal is to have this be the only thing that you need and have any other information be added directly to this PowerPoint. Um, I think that at this point, simpler is better. That way, if you'd like to download the PowerPoint, you'll have everything that you need to access it, even if you might not have internet access at the moment, or if you are juggling a lot of online courses, you'll know that everything is linked right on this presentation. Hopefully that works. Um, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a remind. That's been the best way to get a hold of me. And I just want to walk through what we're going to be doing for these final 4 weeks here of class. So in our third unit, we're going to be doing argument essay. And so the reason I chose this, originally we were going to be doing a rhetorical analysis. Um, which I think is really useful in 104, but it doesn't translate really well in a digital setting like this, especially not having been set up for this type of setting earlier in the semester. So um, we're going to be going with argument essay. We haven't explicitly covered this yet, even though there have been elements of it. The other reason I wanted to go with this is I think it's a form that people are somewhat familiar with. And so we're going to be able to hone that skill rather than introduce a totally new one. What I do invite you to do when we take a look at these types of essays is to explore the Rogerian style. As I've said, your completion of the assignment is going to give you credit for the course. You're going to be fine no matter what. If you experiment with this, you're going to have another skill set under your belt that you can use for other classes. So in the interest of time, what we're going to do is we're all going to be probably focused on the same topic. Now, I'm going to expand this if you are COVID-19 out, if that's a turn of phrase, um, then you can obviously choose another topic, choose another issue. But I think this is something that we're all reading about already. We all have a lot of opinions on it. It's something that hasn't been explored. We're all a part of the conversation. And so it feels very natural to base our essay on this topic. Um, but we know, as we've talked about in other units, the topic of COVID-19 or the topic, any broad sweeping topic, is too big to really do anything meaningful with aside from just summarize. So what we're going to try to do first is we're going to try to find our voice in this much larger conversation, right? So the topic is chosen, but now we're going to find kind of the subtopic. We're going to find your entry point. Like, what is it about this idea that either concerns you or excites you or makes you think differently? Or conversely, maybe what is it that other people are doing or thinking about this idea that's troublesome for you and that you want to challenge? And so, just like anything, and I'm sure you knew where this was heading, uh, you want to make sure that you read extensively in the topic that you're going to be writing on, right? That we talked about from the very beginning that strong writing is based in strong, thorough reading, and so you want to make sure that you know enough about the conversation to contribute. So, in order to do that, I want you to look at least three different perspectives. And when I say read, I'm talking about read in the same way we're always talking about read, in that I want you to, absorb, I want you to digest. Some of these are print articles, some of them are timelines that with kind of just snippets, some of these are audio, some of them are visual, but all texts nevertheless. And I gave you four to start out with. And I'm not going to click the hyperlink. You can do that certainly on your own. This first one is an NBC timeline. It just tracks, it's very much data driven. It tracks the progress of this situation from December all the way through to the present. The second piece comes from Bloomberg. It's a little bit more controversial. It talks about how This virus is acting as a dividing factor, and so it's dividing people along the lines of race, along class, along age, along nationality. And it's an opinion piece that explores that. The TED Hour is an NPR radio broadcast. It has four different speakers. I listened to it this past Sunday. Four different speakers on the topic of COVID-19, specifically around inoculation. I thought it was really compelling. And what's great about that is it gets all of your perspectives kind of in a single 50-minute chunk. So that's certainly valid. And then Psychology Today put together four TED Talks that explore different aspects of the pandemic. All of these would work. Any of them would work. Um, Please feel free to use your own. These are just, again, something to get you started. What I would invite you and what I would encourage you to do, though, is to focus on news sources, right? Focus on valid.org addresses, .com addresses. Um, Specifically, though, .org.gov are going to be some of the more reliable. The CDC is going to be more reliable. News media is fine. Just make sure that you're vetting that news media and you're seeing how you're using it. But avoid things like blog posts, avoid things that are going to give you um, less reliable information. Once you do that, I have a couple of journal prompts for you here. I want you to think a little bit about what you've read, what you understand, and what an incorrect perception is that people have around some aspect, right? So you do want to look at this economically. Do you want to look at it medically? Do you want to look at the social impact? What's an incorrect perception that people have? And then closely related to that, what do you think instead? This is really what the crux of your argument is going to be. And I want you to consider your audience. Now, we've already talked about a traditional argumentative style essay where you have your thesis at the end of the intro paragraph, and then you move into your supporting evidence, right? And then you're just supporting and you're supporting and you're supporting. And that works really well when you're talking about a topic uh, that's not particularly controversial, right? That there's multiple perspectives on it. You're just going to be talking about one. You're not trying to convince anyone that you have the only or you have the most significant perspective. A lot of times what happens is when you're giving your perspective, people will kind of retreat to their own opinions, right, without ever hearing what somebody else has to say or considering their ideas. Because we feel safe in our ideas, right? And we feel, very defensive over our ideas. So it's really important to consider who our audience is. It's important to think, how am I going to significantly and meaningfully move somebody who believes differently than I do into a different perspective, into a different stance? And one of the most important things, if you ever have done any learning around active listening, one of the most important things is making sure that the people you're speaking to believe and understand that they've been heard. And then once they know that they've been heard, and once they know that you're a reasonable kind of judge of their ideas, then you can present your perspective. That's what Rogerian style argument structure does. And so Rogerian style acknowledges the wholeness of the people that you're arguing to. It acknowledges them as logical, valuable human beings who might think differently, right? And so having this kind of Rogerian perspective makes a more balanced and compelling argument. So I want to see, as a challenge, once you have that position, see if you can describe that situation in as neutral terms as possible. And I'm not collecting these don't need to be posted on Blackboard. This is just to get you thinking along the right lines. These are writing prompts. I have a couple of paraphrasing techniques linked on here to some textbook resources that are going to help you to think. There we go. And then I want you to begin thinking about how people who hold a contrasting view would view this perspective, and what are the drawbacks to that idea. And then what you're going to be looking to do, once you know their drawbacks, once you know their perspective, then you're going to present a balanced view that presents the best solution for everybody, right? You want to present your perspective as a win-win for all the parties that are involved. So the outline that I've included here comes from, I believe, the Purdue Writing Center. Yeah, I believe it's the Purdue Writing Center. That outlines how you would approach a essay in the Rogerian style. So I'm not going to walk you through the whole thing, but this takes you through a Rogerian style address, sentence by sentence. What do you put in your introduction? What do you put in your first body paragraph? What do you put in your second body paragraph and third? Right? What is it? How is it that you'd structure this in each? And then finally, the statement of the benefits or statement of your beliefs at the end. But this PowerPoint will walk you through each sentence. It'll get you to a point where you have a really compelling, hey girls, daddy's recording. It'll get you to a point where you have a really kind of coherent rough draft. And at that point, then we can move on and we can start thinking about the final draft. I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about Rogerian style over the next 3 weeks. That's going to be, I'm going to make the assumption that you will be using Rogerian style to support your writing. Um, if you decide to do a traditional argumentative essay, I have a couple resources that I can point you towards. However, my guess is that you are pretty well versed in a traditional argumentative essay at this point. We took a lot of notes about those at the beginning of the semester. It's that Baker keyhole structure. You would just kind of choose your perspective, support your thesis with resources, and go. So here's the assignment sheet. So this just goes through the way I typically go through. We've talked a little bit about agency, and we've talked a little bit about how we can advance our perspective. This assignment is an outcropping of that idea. Our goal is to create a compelling argument that persuades a reader who lies on the opposite side of our issue to believe what you're saying, to take into consideration your ideas. Your essay will argue for the validity of a specific mindset or worldview to an audience who firmly believes its antithesis. Your argument must be grounded in sound research, text-based supports, and logical assumptions and deductions. While you may wish to use the Rogerian-style essay structure, it's not required. So you need to make sure that you revolve around a clear thesis that makes a single arguable claim around coronavirus or another controversial issue. Again, if you're coronavirus out, you can choose something else. You want to support this claim with concrete examples. You can do this entire assignment using only the resources that I've given you. So if you just want to take a look at those 4 resources in the same way that you've done throughout this semester, you're more than welcome to do that. You want to consider audience and purpose, and you want to make sure that it's around 5 pages. I have this saying 5 pages. Really, I'm okay with 4 to 5 pages with 1-inch margins, 12-point readable font. With MLA conventions, which we'll talk more about. Now, the dates for this, I don't have a preliminary assignment in the way that I did for the other units. So there is no ETA sheet, there is no pre-writing sheet. I wanted to just keep it as simple and direct as possible. The only thing that you're required to do is have that rough draft and have that final draft. And I can give you a hand as we go along with those. And we're going to have some live sessions as we go along that will help with those. In terms of a due date, the suggested due date, again, all of these are suggestions at this point because I wanted to take away any pressure. I know people's schedules are different now. The suggested due date for the rough draft is 4/27. The suggested date for the final draft is 5/4. Regardless of when you choose, all work must be submitted by 5/10. Now, if you're aiming for that A grade, which is all your assignments submitted with the final reflection piece, the final reflection piece I'll be assigning on 5/4, and it'll be due by 5/10. If you are aiming for that B grade, where you are just doing the 3 units and you're leaving the final reflection and final assignment out, that needs to be, then you don't have to worry about what comes up on 5/4. You're done at the conclusion of this assignment. If you're aiming for the C grade, where you're just looking for those 3 major papers with nothing else, then you're just, again, going to focus on that final draft that makes an argument about a controversial issue.